Hey everybody, it's JP here with Meets Fab and Customs. I'm just going to go through here a quick video. I've had a lot of questions asked about my chassis here, these Switchblade chassis that if you've been following along, you've seen motor go in, trans go in, body go on one and everything. So I just thought I'd do a quick, little run through on them and that, because I've had a bunch of questions, so it's probably just easier to do it this way. So right here's one. It doesn't have the body on it yet. As you can see, it has the arched front rails with the speed holes in them. Now here's where they're different. Right here, if you notice here, that's been flipped on its side. And that, your main rails. And then you got your kick back here. And that, and your opening for your tranny. So what I've had a bunch of people say about these rails being flipped sideways. Well, you got to look at the whole thing here. When these get flipped sideways, you have these cross members in here. So that ties right here. This one here ties your back kick into here. Now you have these ones. This strengthens all this up. But when you do a lot of Model A chassis, they don't have that. They just have this. Your transmission cross member. That's it. So that's how these are being strengthened from getting flex in them. Is through this cross member right here. Also, this here is thicker than that. A lot of Model A chassis and chassis you do are 1/8 inch. This one here is actually 3/16 is what these ones here are. Same as these front rails. Your outsides here are 3/16. This is 8 because you need to be able to bend it. And then you have all these welded in here solid as well. So this strengthens everything. The other thing in here is these slide into each other. Right in here. They slide into each other. So this overlaps this frame here. And that is what happens in here. So that stops your flex from happening here. The other thing that helps your flex here, so you don't get the flex in there, is your motor once it's installed. And so once it gets installed, you can't really flex the motor all that much. So that strengthens it as well. So it's sort of everything all put in is what stops these things from flexing. And now, if you look, the reason why I flipped these rails, here's one here, we got part of the floor in already. Now if you look, this floor is sitting at your stock height. This has the chassis in it. This is sitting at your stock height. Here. So when you chop this, especially if you're going with a radical chop, you can chop this pretty radical and still be able to get in this thing. And if you don't want to go with a radical chop, you're still good. You're really good, actually. So, for instance, myself, I kind of luck out. I'm 5 foot nothing. So, I can fit in pretty much any hot rod and that. But when you start hitting 6 foot, 6'3", 6'4", I've never had that luxury of, knowing what it's like to be tall. But with these rails being flipped up the other way, all of a sudden, you're 4 inches. You're 4 inches just to start with that you've come up. Now, what a lot of other guys do is then they'll put a piece of 1 inch square tubing and attach your floor. So it's actually not 4 inches you've come up 5 inches. And that. So now you're taking 5 inches out of here, and that's guesstimating here. And that, roughly that much, and that out of here. Now you lose a ton of headroom. So now, by the time you get your visor and everything in here, you can't see anything. So that's why those rails are flipped sideways. And that, to give you your headroom. So now, if you notice here, we got 2 different kicks. So this kick here, it's kicked way up. And that, because this thing here is getting the great big 33-inch tires and wheels on it. So if you look, it's all already on dollies. So this one here, it's getting coilovers. I recommend going 9 inches roughly back in here. And that, you start getting much more in that for ride height, you start ripping stuff off and catching bodies, having problems pulling out of places. So yeah, all that low cool stuff looks great. I'll give it that. Looks beautiful in magazines, on the internet. I'm up here in Canada and we have potholes up here where you need a road map to get out of them. So that's a height I recommend. Back to, it's your own freaking hot rod, do whatever you want. But that's just what I've found in my experience. So the other thing here on these, if you notice, when I do the trans mount, the pan is completely flush with the bottom of this frame rail. And if you go back to the previous videos, you'll see how that's done. Reason being, you hope you'll catch a frame rail or something before you catch that trans pan. The other thing, and this one's hard because this has an LS with a stock pan on it, and if you look, it hangs way down. So this thing here needs, it's going to need a flat pan put on it, is what it's going to need, and or like the Camaro pan or something to get that thing up, because that's got about the first speed bump, and you're it's not going to be good. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Where you look on a small block Chev, that's a stock small block Chev pan in this one, and it's up high enough. You'll be fine with that one. It won't hit. But if you look underneath here, you notice that trans pan is level. You don't see anything hanging down here. So you don't really, you have to worry about speed bumps and manuals, don't get me wrong. But you should be pretty good. So now the other thing, there's different options here at the front end. So this one here, this here is getting a spring under style. That's going on this one. So this has flat cross member. So that lowers this car down even more from the stock, you know, Model A. A lot of guys were using 32 Ford ones. So, you know, they drop down. They drop down, which is going to make you ride higher. So these here, you know, these ones sit flush. So you're gaining probably another 2 inches or so on top of your 4-inch drop axle. Now, you got suicide right there. So if you notice on these suicides, I go spring over. The reason for going spring over, that drops these down that little bit more than that by going spring over. So if you go spring under, and that, it's going to raise the car up that much, is what's going to happen. So that's why I do that, gets it just down that little bit more. And that. So back to strength. So the other thing to strengthen the so if you notice this floor here sits flush on your frame rails. So when you run your cross members, they're going to be like this. You're going to put your cross members so they hit your seat base. So you make them functional. And that is what's going to happen. You're going to have one roughly in here. You'll have one back here. You have one back there. You're going to have one in here where this floor starts to kick up. Then you got this trans tunnel. So this trans tunnel, with this body being mounted directly to the frame, makes this car like a unibody. Trans tunnel there strengthens that up as well in there. So it's one of those when you do everything all together, everything's strong. And that's how these chassis are set up to be. So I got ones out there and they got huge horsepower. Never had an issue with them. So it's just, you know, just sort of taking you through these, you know, chassis and that on what they're all about, and how, you know, how it's sort of put together to be strong. And that. The other thing here on this one, if you notice, right here is where your steering box is going to go for your Vega Cross steer, for your Vega box and everything. So then you'll be able to run your steering shaft up through there, all nice, even with your, you know, set of block huggers and all that, which that one there, that motor right there is the one that's going in that car. So like I said, you got the block huggers and all that. This style chassis here, this one here is completely different. This here has the straight rails. So if you notice on this one here with the straight rails and that, no holes, how high the motor mount has to be. Now motor mount has to be that high because the trans pan, I've done the same thing with it because this thing sits low, put it level with the frame rail. So you don't have to worry about ripping that off. So that's how that one is. So that's straight rails there. So the straight rails, you end up with a great big motor mount like that on it to get that motor up and out of the way. And that, like I say, you go back to my previous videos, it shows all this. It shows how to set all that up. But this one here also has suicide front end as well. But if you notice on it, the tie rod actually goes on the front. Reason being, you can't get that tie rod to go there. Because you try to get that tie rod to go up in here, you're going to be going right through your rad support and everything. And that. So that's what's nice when you kick these rails the way you do. You can go like that. And everything will go underneath. So everything goes nice. And that. And with that, yeah, it looks tight. But as this car goes up and down, that actually goes like this. So it actually gives you more clearance. And because that's with the caster, that's how this will move. is like that. So you got lots of room there. And that on there. So that's just a few things with these chassis. So I just thought I'd do a quick video here and you know, take everyone through what's going on with them. And you know, if you like this video, you know, subscribe. We're doing a complete series on this, building this Model A, that Model A right there. So, you know, follow along with it. You know, if you like this video, subscribe, you know, share with your buddies and that. And you know what, if there's anything you want to know, just hit up the comments and we'll try to take you through it, and I'll try to be somewhat helpful. And everyone have a great day and get out there, build something cool, and bye.